And then they came later, a doctor and a nurse, and told my husband and I, your son has Down syndrome. And my reaction that I still feel guilt over, that I'm still working through.
Why are we not giving parents the opportunity to say, your life has changed, and normalizing that? And then making sure that these conversations can happen.
I think that we live in a culture where you're not even allowed to grieve the parenting journey you thought you were gonna have. There were days I wanted to cry, feeling ashamed for the feeling I'm having, but then I have to bottle it and then eat my pain away.
Struck by this dichotomy of this enforced kind of toxic positivity.
Every parent carries a story, every advocate carries hope, and every caregiver deserves to be seen. Welcome to The Circle, where we come together at the Parent Forge to share, to learn, and to remember that our voices are strongest when they rise together. Life has its way of giving us turns, and one is when you get pregnant, you have all the ideas and dreams of what your parenting journey will be like. But what happens when the journey takes a turn and the turn is a diagnosis? How do you even accept the new norm? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And as usual, I have my wonderful ladies here. What happens when life gives you that, this is it? What do you do? And first of all, how does that even land? And how do you even accept that new norm and the reality?
It's tough. For me personally, having a son with Down syndrome, it was his birth that I knew, but he was 8 weeks premature. I was rushed from Portsmouth, New Hampshire to Boston. And, I had no idea. I was 25. It was my first baby. And so we get there, go through the whole wonderful thing. It was an interesting delivery. I won't go into the gory details, but we finally got the baby out. And then they had to take him away because he was so small. And I said, is he okay? Yeah, he's alive. But, so I had a baby and they took him away. I never saw him right away. And then they came later, a doctor and a nurse, and told my husband and I, your son has Down syndrome. And my reaction that I still feel guilt over, that I'm still working through, the first thing out of my mouth was, just fucking shoot me. And it hurt when I heard myself say that. Was like, wow. So I had to do some deep soul searching, but at that point I still hadn't seen Nathaniel. And I had post-eclampsia and I had toxemia, so my blood pressure was very high. And so they wheeled me down into the NICU to see him. And there was this big burly guy nurse. And he said, well, you can hold him just for, he was in an incubator. And so he wrapped up this little 3.5 pounds. He was, if you saw him today, he weighs 240 pounds and he's short and very round. So he's quite healthy. Nobody has to worry about him now. But at the moment, and I'm like 25, this is my first baby. He's 3.5 pounds. He has Down syndrome. I don't even know what that means, because I was born of the era of they were all secluded and they were all overweight and smiling all the time. That's all I knew about those people over there. And so I see him and this big burly doctor looks at me and he goes, are you going to keep him? Wow. Yeah, I'm going to keep him. But then I kept going back to that comment I made. And I kept playing it over and over in my head. And I'm looking at this little baby. And of course I'm going to keep him. But then then we go back to the room. And a doctor comes in and says, do you need anything? And I said, I need somebody to talk to. I don't know anything about Downs. I don't even know anything about having a baby. And they sent me a psychiatrist. And they said, well, we could put you on some meds. Take away some of the angst. So right off it was a horrible pregnancy and delivery. And right off the bat, nothing, no one.
Yeah.
And again, it was 41 years ago. So I had another doctor come in saying, I'm sorry, but people with Down syndrome, occasionally they don't walk, he may never talk, and they don't live long. That was the first thing.
Manage your expectations, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
So it was, it was pretty horrible. And it took a number of years, and me doing the advocacy. I started parent to parent in New Hampshire because I didn't want anybody to have to go through what I went through.
Yeah.
So I think back then I was an advocate on steroids because it was like, this is so wrong on so many levels. My sadness still is, what about all the children that are born to parents who don't have a big mouth like I do,
Yeah.
or don't have the wherewithal themselves to be able to advocate for their own child?
And Nance, I hear in your story, your first response is not one that you love. But when you saw him and they said, well, would you give him up? And your first response was, no, this is my baby.
Yeah.
And remember that.
I do.
But how many parents don't maybe have that strong sense at first of, no, I want this? And why isn't there room made for a mourning period or a reassessment period? You didn't need to be drugged. You needed someone to give you information. That you needed someone to literally let you have a grieving process of the dying away of all of the imagining, right, of parenthood, and then a reckoning of what is, right? But you need to be allowed to walk through all of those steps before you arrive at here. And you weren't given that opportunity, and I imagine that happens a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a very common thing. Maybe I'm talking too much in absolutes, but I think that we live in a culture where you're not even allowed to grieve the parenting journey you thought you were gonna have, because it's like, hey, it is what it is. And so many parents, I have gone through it also, where it's like, there were days I wanted to cry, but I will hide my face. I'll go hide because I feel like I'm feeling ashamed for the feeling I'm having because of an experience I'm having. So then I have to bottle it up, right? And then eat my pain away. So that's how I gained all that weight, because I was 100 pounds overweight, right? Because I was eating the pain away. I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. And for me, it actually started at the hospital, where I was also wheeled to the NICU because I had also just had the C-section and all that. And I came back and I was crying, and the nurse was like, are you okay? Do you have depression or something? And it was like, are you aware of what I'm processing in the moment? So right at the hospital, I had been made to feel like, no, you can't cry. So the first 5 years of my journey, I was smiling, and I like to smile. So I'm the person who is smiling, but behind that smile is a lot of pain and the dissonance that comes with that, where I'm smiling through it and people are like, oh, she's fine. Oh, she's happy. Oh, Amma is funny. But then I'm in pain, and I go in my closet and I'm crying, but I'm not allowed to cry. And it took a lot of therapy for me to get to the place of going like, hey, I accept this for what it is. I love my kids. It is what it is, but I need to learn to accept it. But it took having that safe space to even acknowledge how I feel, even before I could get to that place of acceptance. So like what you're saying, Lanta, giving people the room to grieve and to acknowledge the feelings that they have about whatever experience they're going through is very important. And that's why, again, I go back to listener circles, because I'm like, we need to give people the number of people who are hiding because they feel they don't have permission to feel what they're feeling.
And I feel like that's abandonment of self.
Yep.
Like back to our self-care conversation, right? There's an abandonment of self when you paint on a happy face and you don't allow yourself to be in your experience.
Yep.
And
And my children don't have disabilities that I'm aware of. Yet, disability is the one thing that one population we will all become part of at some time.
Yeah.
And so
I'm heading there quickly.
And so I use those words cautiously, because when I say, well, my kids don't have disabilities, maybe there's something that we just haven't caught on to yet. And I don't know, but regardless, I haven't walked in those shoes. And what I can tell you though is from hearing what you're saying, when you mentioned the hospital, I don't know that perspective of having a child with a disability at birth, but I can tell you that just being a mom, we're taught you're supposed to, we're expected. You had a baby, you're supposed to be celebrating. Okay. Have you ever looked down at yourself right after you had a baby?
Oh.
I'm sorry. Like I had an emergency C-section and then another one after that. But we're supposed to, we should be expected to grieve regardless. Our lives have completely changed now. That is not to diminish anything that you are saying, but why are we not giving, even fathers, why are we not giving parents the opportunity to say, your life has changed, and normalizing that? And then making sure that these conversations can happen, and that grief is not shame.
Yes.
And that, if grief is happening, okay, what are you experiencing? Making it talkable, but we're shaming it. Why are you crying?
Right.
Well, who cares why you're crying? What can I do to be there to support you? Do you need some time? Let's be supportive versus shaming.
Right.
We all react to things differently. Why can't we just have the right to react?
Yeah.
You think in this country, you give birth and you got 24 hours to get out. And I had a friend who had her child in Germany, and she said, I was there for 10 days, and I was the one who said, I'm ready to go home. And she got all this support, and here we're going to help you do this. And it was all allowing her 10 days. We've all given birth here. I'm sorry, guys, but our whole bodies have changed. Yeah. Hey, I just lost 35 pounds, and that was from my first, So years later, 41 years later, we're not. So giving birth in and of itself, we're not allowed time to recuperate from this major thing that has just happened. Then you add on to that, if your child, like mine and yours, are diagnosed at birth, so now it's like a double whammy. It's like my body has just been through this traumatic event. I'm sorry, that's what it is. I mean, it's anyway. And then you get this news on top of it, and now I'm supposed to go, okay, life is good. I'm going to take my 3.5-pound baby home who has Down syndrome. I don't have any idea what that means. And I'm just going to carry on.
And they told you that things are just going to be a business. Right. So you're grieving all that.
No joy.
And he's probably going to die and never talk, never walk. So why the hell keep him? I was like, wow. And but then it's you bring him home, and then where's the support? And again, you said this about the village in another video. You have to watch all the videos about what happened with your son, and then your village disappeared. Oh my God, I've had people dropping like flies, and he'll grow out of it. As I mentioned earlier, it was horrible.
I'm just struck by this dichotomy of this enforced kind of toxic positivity, followed by the lack of support, lack of empathy from professionals who do this for a living. Like, how shocking.
Yeah.
People really need listening circles.
Yeah.
They do. Which brings us to I could go on for days, but I won't.
This is us. And this is what Listening Circles is all about. It's showing up in the space just to let it out, express yourself. You can choose to talk, you can choose not to talk, but it's just building that community, having the safe space to let out the secrets, the things in your head and in your mind that keep churning every single day, but you haven't found that safe space to let it out. That is what Listening Circles is all about. So check out the Listening Circles at www.theparentforge.com/listening circles. Sign up for the next one and start your journey into building that resilience mentally, emotionally, physically, psychologically, so that you can step into your power as a true, confident advocate for you, your children, and your family members. Take care and have a lovely day. Thank you for joining us in the circle at the Parent Forge. If this conversation spoke to you, we would love for you to join our free weekly listening circle, a space to pause, breathe, and connect with others who understand the journey. Subscribe, share, and keep the conversation going. And remember, together we are forging strength, one conversation at a time.